Hello, everyone. Sorry to keep you waiting. I had to use the bathroom, but here we are. Thank you, Zircon. Hi. How's everyone doing? Are you excited? We're reading more Frankenstein. Give me just 1 second. Okay, I have posted to Tumblr. Alright, let me just pull up the PDF as well. But hello, we're back. We are reading Frankenstein again today. We are halfway through volume 2, which means I think we're halfway through the book in general. And this will be the 5th stream. So we might have another 3 or 4 more after this, depending. Okay, where is it? There we go. Okay, why does this always open incorrectly? There we go. Hello? Fishbone wanted in. He wants to say hi. He's scratching at my door.
That's what it sounded like.
Hi, baby. Do you want to say hi?
You wanna give him-
Oh, he's gonna destroy things. He's fine for a little bit. Oh, yeah. Fishbone might join us. He's been liking staying in my room recently. Hmm? Yeah, sure. Hi, Fishbone. Do you want to say hi? I have set up a chair in my room for him to sit at, which he has been enjoying. Hi, baby. You have nothing to say? You don't have anything to say? You've been so talkative lately. Hi, I'll bite her. Okay. Now he wants to leave, of course. He is but a cat. Wanna leave? Never mind. Yeah, he just wanted to bite. That's all he ever wants. Okay, we reading. Oh wait, I gotta find where we are. So we're still reading I'm mainly reading from my book and then also making sure that the PDF is not like missing anything. Okay. I'm gonna turn off Spotify for you guys as well. I did reconfigure my settings again so that my VODs won't have music, which I think will ultimately be good. Because one, I'll be able to play DMCA songs. Actually, let's test that. I should be able to play like any song now, and it won't be saved to my VOD. It also won't be saved to my recording, which will be nice when I go to edit stuff, I think. Because then I can put better music that kind of fits. Because y'all can still hear this, and then it'll be a test of if the VOD can hear it. I'm still deciding whether I want to figure out how to stream like Clone Hero, because that's just all DMCA songs. But I've been really enjoying playing Clone Hero recently. Okay, I'm muting that again for you guys. You can play whatever music you want. I also spent a bit of time this week. I've been editing a little bit. We're still trying to catch up. But I also spent time basically just like quadruple checking that my VOD order is correct. Because right now I should be on, this should be my 309th stream. Fishbone just knocked something over. That's fine. Idiot. This will be my 309th stream, but if you look at my VOD channel, I only have 300 up right now. I am missing roughly 8. If you're curious, I finally wrote them down for myself in a place where I'm hopefully not going to lose them again. I'm missing my short hike VOD, which is a video that you can watch on my channel, but just not the whole VOD. But that may have kind of messed up all of my numbers by 1, and I'm not. So I'm roughly on the 309th, maybe 310th. I don't know. Yeah, percentage-wise, I'm missing just a couple here and there. But yeah, I'm roughly at my 309th-ish stream. I'm missing one D&D stream from August 6, 2021. I'm missing a American Truck Simulator from October. I think I'm missing when I was reading another horror story. What the fuck's his name? I can't remember his name. But I read a story a while ago. It's a Cthulhu guy. I've been sitting here for like 2 days trying to remember his name and I can't. I'm missing 2 of my Chromebook streams when I played Satera and Type Racer, but that's okay because they weren't good at streams anyway. I'm missing my Imori music tier list. I and I'm missing a Minecraft Hypixel from September 2023. Lovecraft, yes, HP Lovecraft. That's the fuckers. I also had like an extra recording when we did Just Dance with Crow, Corey, and Zircon. For some reason, none of my Twitch tracking things caught that was a stream, so I have an extra one. And then there's also one that I don't really count. That's a Minecraft Dungeons that I did a 25-minute stream. Something must have happened with my Wi-Fi there because I don't fucking remember. Yeah, not the worst ones to be missing, honestly. Where is this? But yeah, if you were ever looking at my VOD channel and wondering why the numbers don't add up, that's why. I'm missing some. I might not have saved them in some instances. They got deleted during my corruption shit. Who knows? But I'm missing 8. 8 out of 309. I'm missing 2.5% of my streams. That's pretty good. Okay. But oh yes, this was because Twitch is getting rid of basically hours and hours of highlights and kind of VOD storage. Hey Navy, better than Germa. One day I hope to be like Germa. That's the goal, always. But yeah, Twitch is getting rid of VOD storage, which in a way makes sense. They tried to have highlights as a way to like basically host some videos to help people promote their shit, but most people, one, don't use them, don't look at them, or only use them to store full VODs. I think that's all I've ever seen people use them for. Clips have been a much better way to boost engagement. They just always have been, and they're finally kind of leaning more into that. Yeah, so they're limiting it to 100 hours for everyone. And Twitch sent me a fun little notification of, hey, you're a little bit over. You might want to delete some. You want to guess how many hours I have saved on my Twitch highlights? Yeah, I've never uploaded a video to it before. I don't really understand the uploading part of it. But yeah, I don't highlight that much. I highlight important VODs, like things I think are really important. So it's not like every VOD. I am so glad I'm finally caught up with my YouTube VODs though. Well, it's not like I don't highlight everything, but I do have 564 hours and 13 minutes. I didn't think it was that bad. Highlights are also they're a pain to use because you can't search. The best thing about the YouTube VOD channel is that you can search within a channel to find like exactly what you're looking for. Yeah, I honestly thought it wasn't going to be that bad. I was like, they have a loan of 100. Maybe I've got 200 hours. Nope. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. Yeah, most of my Minecraft isn't even highlighted on this. It's like other games that I highlighted. So I'm just gonna let Twitch deal with that, and whatever ones have the least amount of views are just gonna be gone. They're gonna be on YouTube, so don't worry, but they will be gone from Twitch. It's a little annoying, but it's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, they're deciding which ones get deleted by I can't remember where I read that, but yeah, they're gonna decide which ones, whichever ones have the least amount of views, they're just gonna delete, unless you choose yourself. And I don't want to go through my shit and delete them myself, so I'm letting Twitch deal with that. But that's only highlights. It's not going to affect VODs. VODs will always, for me at least, I have them for 3 months because I'm affiliate. So, whatever. VODs and clips do not count for this storage. That's separate. So, yeah. I also cannot upload anything right now because I'm so much over the limit. So that's funny. Okay. Anyway, that's just some Twitch updates. Let's get to reading because it's already like 9 p.m. I did have work today, so that's why we're doing a bit later. You have a grand total of 1 minute? I'm now very curious to see this 1 minute of highlights you have, Navy. Why do you have 5 minutes? What did you highlight? Everyone, we're gonna be watching Navy's highlight reel. That's fair. That should be the way highlights are used. That's what they wanted them to be used for. Maybe I should just delete all my shit and just use it like that. But that's too much work. I don't care that much. Oh, you guys can't hear this.
I'm gonna go with yes. So I am fine with having bad solves at the moment. Because in the long run it'll mean more of them. Them being the 16. And the 19 mean of 3. And the 20 AO5.
Accent reveal. Yeah, jeez.
I don't know
It's
how
okay.
much
I'll
of
also
my
bring up
takes are
Zircon's
like
highlights.
this. I'm usually not this positive. But it's a nice change.
You've got some full streams on here, Zircon. I think it's probably still under the 100 hours. But don't worry, we'll also watch this. I can't remember what this was.
Hey, what's the Latin word for pig? This is extremely important knowledge. I must have it. Somebody in chat, please hook me up. What's the Latin word for pig?
Oh, now I can't remember. I think I was here for this.
Orcus. Yeah, fishy, I don't believe you. Ah. Oh, my phone is telling me it's bedtime. However, I'm saying it's vault time. Picky. Picky.
I swear I'm not trying to, like,
Folks,
postpone Frankenstein, but I am curious.
follow me, my porpoise friends. Those are baby pigs that we can't pick up. They're too small to fit in the jar. We have 11. I want 12. I want more. There you are. Alright. I want, like, you know how you'd say bovine? Or equine? I want that, but for pigs.
Okay, I remember this part. This is when I started
Coming?
watching, I think. It's, oh god, I can't remember now. Hopefully I'm in chat for this.
I suppose it'd probably have something to do with, like, the word swine. I don't know. It's not that. I don't care if that's the Latin term for them. That's not the word I'm looking for. Is it just swine? Swine isn't a descriptor, though. Like, porcine, or...
I think it's just swine, I guess. That's me.
Swine isn't a descriptor. That's not the word I'm looking for. No, because that's not, like, bovine. This animal is not swine in nature. Chat, you're not helping.
Hold on, I think I do come up with the answer here. But I
know
can't
said
remember
I'm looking
it.
for pigs, but also there's a geode over here, and I want to see if anything has grown.
Porcine? Oh, that might be it.
Pigs are not swine in nature. I mean, that's...
I went down a rabbit hole the other night
It's not an adjective. It's not a descriptor.
rabbit
Swine
taxonomy.
is a noun.
We get there eventually. What's rabbits
Well,
again? I
search
can't
harder.
remember.
Be better. Swine is a noun. Let me fight some vanilla mobs now. Yeah, but
Hold on.
bovine is also an adjective. Search for the equivalent of equine.
Benign.
Because equine's an adjective. Ooh, a thunderstorm. Need to go down. Whoops, too far.
Benign.
I'm being a great streamer. You guys are being terrible chat. You're not telling me what the pig equivalent of equine is. Pigs are not swine. No.
Pigs are not swine.
No! Equine? No! 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 Swine is not an adjective!
What is happening?
You guys, I'm gonna ban you for spamming. Swine is not an adjective. Swine is not an adjective. You can be swine-like, you can't be swine. I am mad. I don't get angry about video games. I get angry about the fact that my friends are gaslighting me. Swine is not an adjective. I'm gonna fucking pull up Google. I don't even have Google Chrome on this computer. I don't know what I'm standing here for.
It's porcine. We've got it.
Porcine!
Navy was right.
God. Thank you, Bones. Oh my god.
Yeah, this whole time I was just trying to find this word because I knew what you meant, but nothing was showing it. What's bunny? Is it benign? Or like what would this be? Vine. Isn't that sheep? Yeah, ovine sheep. Because they're Ovid. Or not Ovid. Ovis, sorry. Lapine, that, yes. That actually might be closer to foxes, but yes, bunnies. It is also a fictional language. For Watership Down. This might be wrong. This might be wrong. Can also be used to describe rapid society. Maybe that one works. I think this one is actually, this one feels right. Leporine. Of or resembling a hare or hares, yeah. Leporine. What would like lupine? Would that be wolf? It's a plant. So that's great. Anyway, this is not Frankenstein. Shall we actually read the book? This is important scientific research, okay? This is just what I do on my free time. Is I go to Google and I search bunny and then I click a bunch of links. That's funny. But also I think that's probably the most popular Latin Canis lupus, or at least lupus. Vulpus, that's what I was thinking of for fox, yep. Mele. So vulpine would be fox. Yeah. Or vulpini. Oh, but that's a taxonomy. Vulpine is relating to a fox. Yes, like the Pokemon. Are badgers vulpini? Or are what are badgers? Oh, a little guy. Ah, weasel. Where are foxes? Shame they're angry. Hey, I'm reading. I'm reading Wikipedia. This is important, okay? I'm not gonna be able to let this go. Okay, yeah, foxes are in this. Yes. Oh, there's so many guys. Oh, look at this guy. Oh, look at this guy. Is that Tanuki? No, I don't think so. Raccoon dog. Look at this guy. Ooh. Imagine being called D-hole. This one's called D-hole. D-hole on the move is the description of this of this image. But also, you know that thing where a bunch of if you search up wolf skull tattoo, most of them are actually raccoon skulls. You don't like how they look? Hold on, let's find a wolf. Well, that's a coyote. I want a gray wolf. They got an image of your skull on here. Oh, you can. Do you want to hear wolves howling? That's a cool image. What's he doing? What's this guy doing? Okay, it does not have an image. Anyway. This is just extending how long I'm streaming. Okay, well now I need to see an actual wolf skull. Why do you think they're stupid? You ever seen an otter skull? Look at this thing. Terrifying. What about a badger? Yeah, similar, bit more rounded up here. Oh, from my favorite skull website. Or bone website, I mean. Anyway. One more search. That's fucked. It's so long. Oh yeah. Sheep are great. Sheeple. This is my territory. Ah. Jacob Sheep. Cause I don't know if it's clear, especially if you follow my Tumblr. That does not sound weird to me at all. I've got a cow vertebrae and a couple deer jaws. You're talking to Addict's Bones here. Do you think that sounds weird to me? I do really like. I picked such a niche animal. Like if you search sheep bones, you're gonna get this, right? But if you try and search up the animal Addict's bones, um, I've done this before where it just brings you to me. Oh, it doesn't. There I am. Ooh, a shoulder. But yeah, sheep are closer related to like this guy, right? So I'm used to this fucking jawline. What's this? That's a dragon. Look at these guys. What is this image? Rowan antelope image. Anyway, a sheep skull would be really cool. I've fed a baby lamb before. That's fun. Anyway, Frankenstein. We are on volume 2, chapter 6. That is where we ended off. Oh, I'm sure, Navy, you could find some. I'm sure I could also find some. Horse skulls are also fucked. Zircon, you want to weigh in on that one? Anyway, so volume 2 is mainly all in the monster's perspective. I mean, yeah, makes sense. Horse skulls are wild, I think. But yeah, Navy, you'd probably be closer to like authentic or sheep breeds as well, which would be cool. I took vaguely a sheep course my last year of university. Anyway. So we decided against me reading this all in a voice because otherwise that would hurt after hours of reading in a monster voice. But I might just try and lower my voice like a little bit. We'll see. But yeah. Volume 2, Chapter 6. We're still in the monster's point of view. Some time elapsed before I learned the history of my friends. It was one which could not fail to impress itself deeply on my mind, unfolding as it did a number of circumstances, each interesting and wonderful to one so utterly inexperienced as I was. Yeah, I think about that sometimes too, Navy. Just the idea of being on a farm is really enticing. It has nothing to do with being a cowboy. But yeah, my family all grew up on farms, so. But then I was raised in the city, so not really in my blood. Well, it's not really in me. Anyway. The name of the old man was De Lacy. He was descended from a good family in France, where he had lived for many years in affluence, respected by his superiors and beloved by his equals. His son was bred in the service of his country, and Agatha had ranked with ladies of the highest distinction. A few months before my arrival, they had lived in a large and luxurious city called Paris, surrounded by friends and possessed of every enjoyment which virtue, refinement of intellect, or taste, accompanied by a moderate fortune, could afford. The father of Safi had been the cause of their ruin. He was a Turkish merchant and had inhabited Paris for many years. When, for reasons which I could not learn, he became obnoxious to the government, he was seized and cast into prison the very day that Safi arrived from Constantinople to join him. He was tried and condemned to death. The injustice of his sentence was very flagrant. All Paris was indignant, and it was judged that his religion and wealth, rather than the crime alleged against him, had been the cause of his condemnation. Felix had accidentally been present at the trial. His horror and indignation were uncontrollable when he heard the decision of the court. He made at that moment a solemn vow to deliver him, and then looked around for the means. After many fruitless attempts to gain admittance to the prison, he found a strongly grated window in an unguarded part of the building. Which lighted the dungeons of the unfortunate Mahometan? Mahometan. Mountain, but different. Who, loaded with chains, waited in despair the execution of the barbarous sentence. Felix visited the grave at night and made known to the prisoner his intentions in his favor. The Turk, amazed and delighted, endeavored to kindle the zeal of his deliverer by promises of reward and wealth. Felix rejected his offer with contempt. Yet when he saw the lovely Safi, who was allowed to visit her father, and who, by her gestures, expressed her lively gratitude, the youth could not help owning to his own mind that the captive possessed a treasure which would fully reward his toil and hazard. The Turk quickly perceived the impression that his daughter had made on the heart of Felix, and endeavored to secure him more entirely in his interests by the promise of her hand in marriage, so soon as he should be conveyed to a place of safety. Felix was so delicate to accept his offer, yet he looked forward to the probability of the event as to the consummation of his happiness. He looked forward to their wedding day, if you know what I mean. That's what that sounds like. During the ensuing days, while the preparations were going forward for the escape of the merchant, the zeal of Felix was warmed by several letters that he received from this lovely girl, who found means to express her thoughts in the language of her lover by the aid of an old man, a servant of her father who understood French. She thanked him in the most ardent terms for his intended services towards her parent, and at the same time she gently deplored her own fate. I have copies of these letters, for I found means, during my residence in the hovel, to procure the implements of writing, and the letters were often in the hand of Felix or Agatha. Before I depart, I will give them to you. They will prove the truth of my tale, but at present, as the sun is already far declined, I shall only have time to repeat the substance of them to you. Safi related that her mother was a Christian Arab, seized and made a slave by the Turks. Recommended by her beauty, she had won the heart of the father of Safi, who married her. The young girl spoke in high and enthusiastic terms of her mother, who, born in freedom, spurned the bondage to which she was now reduced. She instructed her daughter in the tenets of her religion and taught her to aspire to higher powers of intellect and independence of spirit forbidden to the female followers of Mahomet. This lady died, but her lessons were indelibly impressed on the mind of Safi, who sickened at the prospect of again returning to Asia and being immured within the walls of a harem, allowed only to occupy herself with infantile amusements. ill-suited to the temper of her soul, now accustomed to grand ideas and a noble emulation of virtue. The prospect of marrying a Christian and remaining in a country where women were allowed to take a rank in society was enchanting to her. The day for the execution of the Turk was fixed, but on the night previous to it, he quitted his prison, and before morning was distant many leagues from Paris. Felix had procured passports in the name of his father, sister, and himself. He had previously communicated his plan to the former, who aided the deceit by quitting his home under the pretense of a journey and concealing himself with his daughter in an obscure part of Paris. Felix conducted the fugitives through France to Lyons and across Mount Cenis to Leghorn, where the merchant had decided to wait a favorable opportunity of passing into some part of the Turkish dominions. Footnote: Mary wrote Frankenstein at a time when slavery was still prevalent in Europe and the Americas. Revolutionary France had abolished slavery, but Napoleon reintroduced it after he came into power. In England, the law ending the British slave trade in 1807 culminated a remarkable 2 decades of abolitionist activism, although slavery itself would persist until the Slavery Abolition Act ended the practice in 1834. William Godwin himself had written about slavery in his most famous work, An Inquiry Concerning Political Justice, asking rhetorically, have we slaves? We assiduously retain them in ignorance. The Congress of Vienna, through which European nations attempted to settle the consequences of the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, declared its opposition to slavery in 1815. In the United States, many northern states were beginning a slow process of abolition and freeing currently held slaves around the time Mary was writing Frankenstein. But the nation as a whole would not abolish slavery until after the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, with the passage of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. Safie resolved to remain with her father until the moment of his departure, before which time the Turk renewed his promise that she should be united to this deliverer, and Felix remained with them in expectation of that event, and in the meantime he enjoyed the society of the Arabian, who exhibited towards him the simplest and tenderest affection. They conversed with one another through the means of an interpreter, and sometimes with the interpretation of looks, and Safie sang to him the divine airs of her native country. The Turk allowed this intimacy to take place, and encouraged the hopes of the youthful lovers, while in his heart he had formed far other plans. He loathed the idea that his daughter should be united to a Christian, but he feared the resentment of Felix if he should appear lukewarm, for he knew that he was still in the power of his deliverer if he should choose to betray him to the Italian state which they inhabited. He resolved 1,000 plans by which he should be enabling to prolong the deceit until it might be no longer necessary, and secretly to take his daughter with him when he departed. His plans were facilitated by the news which arrived from Paris. The government of France were greatly enraged at the escape of their victim, and spared no pains to detect and punish his deliverer. The plot of Felix was quickly discovered, and De Lacy and Agatha were thrown into prison. The news reached Felix and roused him from his dream of pleasure. His blind and aged father and his gentle sister lay in a noisome dungeon while he enjoyed the free air and the society of her whom he loved. This idea was torture to him. He quickly arranged with the Turk that if the latter should find a favorable opportunity for escape before Felix could return to Italy, Safie should remain as a boarder the convent at Leghorn. And then, quitting the lovely Arabian, he hastened into Paris and delivered himself up to the vengeance of the law, hoping to free Delancey and Agatha by this proceeding. He did not succeed. They remained confined for 5 months before the trial took place, the result of which deprived them of their fortune and condemned them to the perpetual exile from their native country. They found a miserable asylum in the cottage of Germany, where I discovered them. Felix soon learned that the treacherous Turk, for whom he and his family endured such unheard of oppression, on discovering that his deliverer was thus reduced to poverty and ruin, became a traitor to good feeling and honor, and had quitted Italy with his daughter, insultingly sending Felix a pittance of money to aid him, as he said, in some plan of future maintenance. Such were the events that preyed on the heart of Felix, and rendered him, when I first saw him, the most miserable of his family. He could have endured poverty, and while this distress had been the meed of his virtue, he gloried in it. But the ingratitude of the Turk and the loss of this beloved Safie were misfortunes more bitter and irreparable. The arrival of the Arabian now infused new life into his soul. When the news reached Leghorn that Felix was deprived of his wealth and rank, the merchant commanded his daughter to think no more of her lover, but to prepare to return to her native country. The generous nature of Safie was outraged by this command. She accepted to expostulate with her father, but he left her angrily, reiterating his tyrannical mundane mandate. A few days after, the Turk entered his daughter's apartment and told her hastily that he had reason to believe that his resistance at Leghorn had been divulged, and that he should speedily be delivered up to the French government. He had consequently hired a vessel to convey him to Constantinople, for which city he shall sail in a few hours. He intended to leave his daughter under the care of the confidential servant, to follow at her leisure with the greater part of his property, which had not yet arrived at Leghorn. When alone, Safie resolved in her own mind the plan of conduct that it would become her to pursue in this emergency. A residence in Turkey was abhorrent to her. Her religion and her feelings were alike averse to it. By some papers of her father which fell into her hands, she heard of the exile of her lover, and learnt the name of the spot where he then resided. She hesitated some time, but at length she formed her determination. Taking with her some jewels that belonged to her and a sum of money, she quitted Italy with an attendant, a native of Leghorn and who understood the common language of Turkey. And departed for Germany. She arrived in safety at a town about 20 leagues from the cottage of Delancey, when her attendant fell dangerously ill. Safie nursed her with the most devoted affection, but the poor girl died, and the Arabian was left alone, unacquainted with the language of the country, and utterly ignorant to the customs of the world. She fell, however, into good hands. The Italian had mentioned the name of the spot for which they were bound, and after her death the woman of the house in which they had lived took care that Safie should arrive in safety at the cottage of her lover. Okay, chapter 7. Such was the history of my beloved cottagers. It impressed me deeply, I learned, from the views of social life which it developed, to admire their virtues and to depreciate the vices of mankind. As yet I looked upon crime as a distant evil. Benevolence and generosity were ever present before me, inciting within me a desire to become an actor in the busy scene where so many admirable qualities were called forth and displayed. But in giving an account of the progress of my intellect, I must not omit a circumstance with which occurred in the beginning of the month of August of the same year. One night, during my accustomed visit to the neighboring wood, where I collected my own food and brought home firing for my protectors, I found on the ground a leathern portmanteau containing several articles of dress and some books. I eagerly seized the prize and returned with it to my hovel. Fortunately, the books were written in the language and elements of which I had acquired at the cottage. They consisted of Paradise Lost, a volume of Pulchurch's Lives, and The Sorrows of Werter. The possessions of these treasures gave me extreme delight. I now continually studied, and exercised my mind upon these histories, whilst my friends were employed in their ordinary occupations. Paradise Lost that was mentioned in the group chat earlier today. These three texts were on Mary's reading list the summer before she began writing Frankenstein. They represent a kind of literacy education for the creature. From Pulcharch, he would learn about the great leaders of the Greco-Roman world and the nature of politics and public affairs. In Sorrows of Young Werther, he would read about domestic life and social relationships, particularly as they applied to the difficult business of adolescence and growing up. From Paradise Lost, the creature would learn about faith and the complexities of good and evil. In Milton's story, Satan, the falling angel, is a charismatic anti-hero who challenges his creator. Let me just Google search Paradise Lost really quick. I'm curious. 10,000 lines of verse. Interesting. I think Corey is reading this, which makes a lot of sense from looking at it. And a significant part of who we are as individuals is created in response to what we observe in others. The creature abandoned by his creator has the good fortune to finding a loving and admirable family to watch and attempt to mimic. It is unclear how many of the DeLacy's admirable qualities are genuine and how many are a product of the creature's desire to find in others the qualities he wishes he'd found in his creator. What is clear, however, is that the act of creation is only one small component of the creature's tale. The same is true for any scientific or technological endeavor. The wider social context in which the act of creation takes place will have an impact on the final place and shape of the knowledge or technologies created by the scientist or engineer. Sure. I can hardly describe to you the effects of these books. They produced in me an infinity of new images and feelings that sometimes raised me to ecstasy, but more frequently sunk me to the lowest dejection. In the Sorrows of Werter, besides the interest of its simple and affecting story, so many opinions are canvassed, and so many lights thrown upon what had hitherto been to me obscure subjects, that I found in it never-ending source of speculation and astonishment. The gentle and domestic manners it described combined the lofty sentiments and feelings which had for their object something out of self, accorded well with my experience among my protectors, and with the wants which were forever alone in my own bosom. But I thought Werter himself a more divine being than I had ever beheld or imagined. His character contained no pretension, but it sunk deep. The disquisitions upon death and suicide were calculated to fill me with wonder. I did not pretend to enter into the merits of this case, yet I inclined towards the opinions of the hero, whose extinction I wept without precisely understanding it. As I read, however, I applied much personality of my own feelings and condition. I found myself similar, yet at the same time strangely unlike to the beings concerning whom I read, and to those conversating as a listener. I was a listener. I sympathized with and partly understood them, but I was uninformed in mind. I was dependent on none and related to none. The paths of my departure was free, and there was none to lament my annihilation. My person was hideous and my stature gigantic. What did this to me? Who was I? What am I? Where did I come? What was my destination? These questions continually reoccurred, but I was unable to solve them. Oh, that's a big footnote that I don't really want to read. Put that up for you for 1 second. Okay. The volume of Plutarch's Lives which I possessed contained the histories of the first founders of the ancient republics. This book had a far different effect on me than from the sorrows of Werther. I learned from Werther's imaginations, despondency and gloom, but Plutarch taught me high thoughts. He elevated me above the wretched sphere of my own reflections, to admire and love the heroes of past ages. Many things I read surpassed my understanding and experience. I had a very confused knowledge of kingdoms, wide extents of country, mighty rivers and boundless seas, but I was perfectly unacquainted with towns and large assemblages of man. The cottage of my protectors had been the only school in which I had studied human nature, but this book developed new and mightier scenes of action. I read of men concerned in public affairs, governing or massacring their species. I felt the greatest ardor for virtue rise within me, and abhorrence for vice. As far as I understood the significance of those terms, relative as they were, as I applied them to pleasure and pain alone. Induced by those feelings, I was of course led to admire the peaceable lawgivers, Numa, Solon, and Lycurgus, in preference to Romulus and Theseus. The patriarchal lives of my protectors caused these impressions to take a firm hold on my mind. Perhaps if my first introduction to humanity had been made by a young soldier, burning for glory and slaughter, I should have been imbued with different sensations. But Paradise Lost excited different and far deeper emotions. I read it, as I had read the other volumes which had fallen into my hands, as a true history. It moved every feeling of wonder and awe, and the picture of an omnipotent God warring with his creatures was capable of exciting. I often referred the several situations as their similarity struck to me, to my own. Like Adam, I was apparently united by no link to any other being in existence, but his state was far different from mine in every other respect. He had come forth from the hands of God a perfect creature, happy and prosperous, guarded by the especial care of his Creator. He was allowed to converse with and acquire knowledge from beings of a superior nature, but I was wretched, helpless, and alone. Many times I considered Satan as the fitter emblem of my condition. For often, like him, when I viewed the bliss of my protectors, the bitter gall of envy rose within me. Okay, so this is why he wants a wife. Another circumstance strengthened and confirmed these feelings. Soon after my arrival in the hovel, I discovered some papers in the pocket of the dress which I had taken from your laboratory. At first I had neglected them, but now that I was able to decipher the characters in which they were written, I began to study them with diligence. It was your journal of the 4 months that preceded my creation. You minutely described in those papers every step you took in the progress of your work. This history was mingled with accounts of domestic occurrences. You doubtless recollect those papers. Here they are. Everything is related in them which bears reference to my accursed origin. The whole detail of that series of disgusting circumstances which produced it is set in view. The minutest description of my odious and loathsome person is given, in language which painted your own horrors and rendered mine indeligible. I sickened as I read. Hateful day when I received life, I exclaimed in agony. Accursed creator, why did you form a monster so hideous that even you turned from me in disgust? God, in pity, made man beautiful and alluring after his own image. But my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid even from the very resemblance. Satan had his companions, fellow devils, to admire and encourage him, but I am solitary and abhorred. Those were my reflections of my hours of despondency and solitude. But when I contemplated the virtues of the cottagers, their amiable and benevolent dispositions, I persuaded myself that when they should become acquainted with my admiration of their virtues, they would compassionate me and overlook my personal deformity. Could they turn from their door one, however monstrous, who solicited their companionship and friendship? Okay, so this does answer. It took him 4 months to make the creature-ish. Or he at least has 4 months of his journal, but I would assume that's all of it. I resolved at least not to despair, but in every way to fit myself for an interview with them, which would decide my fate. I postponed this attempt for some months longer, for the importance attached to this success inspired me with a dread lest I should fail. Besides, I found that my understanding improved so much with every day's experience that I was unwilling to commence this undertaking until a few more months should have added to my sagacity. Okay, footnote. I think the PDF says added to my wisdom for that last line, by the way, but here Victor anticipates a problem confronting researchers in the field of robotics and visual animations, as well as related fields. Anyone trying to create lifelike representations of natural organisms will encounter what Japanese roboticist Masahiro Mori calls the uncanny valley. Did my internet drop? What happened? Hmm. Are we back? I think my internet just dropped randomly. Okay, I think we're back. Hello. Hello, everyone. We're back. I hope. Okay, yeah, we're here. Hold on, let me just make sure everything's good with my Wi-Fi. Okay, well, we're back. I guess we will continue reading. Anyway, the footnote is talking about Uncanny Valley. Humans can feel a strong, empathetic connection to creatures that do not closely resemble us or other familiar living things. In film, for example, characters such as the robot Wall-E or the extraterrestrial E.T. gain our sympathy even though they look unfamiliar. But as representations get close to the human form, they can enter the uncanny valley, where slight aberrations from our expectations can generate feelings of aversion or disgust. Mary suggests here that the creature's ugliness derives not from his difference so much as from his uncanny similarities to humans. See also Alfred Nordman's essay Undisturbed by Reality in this volume, which discusses the origins of the notion of the uncanny. That does sound kind of cool. Several changes in the meantime took place in the cottage. The presence of Safi diffused happiness among its inhabitants, and I also found that a greater degree of plenty reigned there. Felix and Agatha spent more time in amusement and conversation, and were assisted in their labors by servants. They did not appear rich, but they were contented and happy. Their feelings were serene and peaceful, while mine became every day more tumultuous. Tumultuous. Increase of knowledge only discovered to me more clearly what a wretched outcast I was. I cherished hope, it is true, but it vanished when I beheld my person reflected in water, or my shadow on the moonshine. Even as that frail image and that inconstant shade. Is that the inconstant shade? Is that what people usually take to depict him as like multiple like kind of skin tones, like different green colors? Maybe. I endeavored to crush these fears and to fortify myself for the trial which in a few months I resolved to undergo. And sometimes I allowed my thoughts, unchecked by reason, to ramble in the fields of paradise, and dared to fancy amiable and lovely creatures sympathizing with my feelings and cheering my gloom. Their angelic countenances breathed smiles of consolation, but it was all a dream. No Eve soothed my sorrows nor shared my thoughts. I was alone. I remembered Adam's supplication to his Creator, but where was mine? He had abandoned me, and in the bitterness of my heart I cursed him. Autumn passed thus, I saw, with surprising grief. The leaves decay and fall, and nature again assumed the barren and bleak appearance it had worn when I first beheld the woods and the lovely moon. Yet I did not heed the bleakness of the weather. I was better fitted by my conformation for the endurance of cold than heat. But my chief delights were the sight of the flowers, the birds, and all the gay apparel of summer. When those deserted me, I turned with more attention towards the cottagers. Their happiness was not decreased by the absence of summer. They loved and sympathized with one another, and their joys, depending on each other, were not interrupted by the casualties that took place around them. The more I saw of them, the greater became my desire to claim their protection and kindness. My heart yearned to be known and loved by these amiable creatures. To see their sweet looks directed towards me with affection was the utmost limit of my ambition. I dared not think that they would turn them from me with disdain and horror. The poor that stopped at their door were never driven away. I asked, it is true, for greater treasure than a little food or rest. I required kindness and sympathy, but I did not believe myself unworthy of it. Footnote, communion represents connection, a sharing or holding of things in common that is central to achieving our full humanity. Social scientists today refer to communion in terms of intimacy or perhaps love or even social support. Research has recently discovered what Mary intuited 2 centuries ago. Positive relationships are what keep us healthy and happy. Sorry, research has recently discovered that positive relationships are what keep us healthy and happy? And what Mary stumbled across? Is that what that sentence means? That's fucking stupid. We experience the irony of watching Victor pursue his goal of creating life while isolating himself from what he later learns is most life giving communion with family, friends, and lovers. And though he gives biological life to his creation, he fails to give him what is most meaningful, communion. Many of us seem driven to try alternate means of happiness, creation of our own monsters perhaps, before we realize that relationships are not superfluous, but are instead essential in our lives. Victor's disdain for and rejection of his own creation became not only his own undoing, but also the causal agent for the transfiguration of his creation's natural state of benevolence to one of violence. Had Victor considered communion as an essential part of life, he would have changed the plight of his creation. Who notes that communion with even one person would change his course and his own plight? Mary artfully presents the human experiences of a process of seeking communion and discharging the pain of disconnection. One is left to wonder if every person must endure loss before understanding the value of communion, whether today's inventors and innovators keep communion more central in their imaginations than Victor does. Sorry, that's still insane. We've recently learned that positive relationships keep us healthy and happy. Who knew? Mary Shelley intuited, meaning she vaguely, intuitively knew about it. Not like she was thinking, man, I love being with my family and friends, as all humans do. Oh no, it means Mary, Mary discovered that herself, obviously, and then we have recently rediscovered it? The hell? It took us 2 centuries to understand what Mary was saying here? That humans are social creatures? Like, whatever, man. Victor's creature has learned about humanity by observing humans and by reading poetry, classical philosophy, and a highly sentimental novel. He believes himself to be worthy of, or at least not disqualified from, receiving the kindly treatment that he has seen humans accord one another. Fair. He's evaluated himself and found himself human. Sure, yeah. Self-esteem, the assessment of value that people give themselves and their own behavior, is a relatively recent psychological concept dating from the late 19th century. This passage can be interpreted as an example of the increased focus on the individual that is associated with the advent of Romanticism. However, the process of evaluating one's behavior and making it relative to that of other people has been a human concern since the dawn of history. Sure. Self-esteem presupposes awareness of self, may be related to survival enhancing, neurological based behaviors common of the many non human social animals in which self awareness has been identified. Research has recently been directed at identifying self esteem like behavior in primates and other animals. Victor's creature seems to have, in addition to the desire to evaluate his own behavior, the ability to judge the fairness of that behavior and the behavior of others. That is, he has a sense of justice. There's evidence that an understanding of fairness or equality is a trait shared by many animals, but research remains to be done to understand the mechanisms by which various animals assess whether another's behavior is equitable or not. Even human concepts of justice can be vague and contradictory and may differ from one culture to another, just as individual humans' evaluation of their own behavior is not necessarily accurate and their opinion of themselves is not necessarily shared by others. Sure. The winter advanced, and an entire revolution of the seasons had taken place since I awoke into life. My attention at this time was solely directed towards my plan of introducing myself into the cottage of my protectors. I revolved many projects, but that on which I finally fixed was to enter the dwelling when the blind old man should be alone. I had stagnancy enough or wisdom to discover that the unnatural hideousness of my person was the chief object of horror with those who had formerly beheld me. My voice, although harsh, had nothing terrible in it. I thought, therefore, that if in the absence of his children I could gain the goodwill and mediation of the old de Lacy, I might by his means be tolerated by my younger protectors. One day, when the sun shone on the red leaves that strewed at the ground and diffused cheerfulness, although it denied warmth, Safie, Agatha, and Felix departed on a long country walk, and the old man, at his own desire, was left alone in the cottage. When his children had departed, he took up his guitar and played several mournful but sweet airs, more sweet and mournful than I had ever heard him play before. At first his countenance was illuminated with pleasure, but as he continued, thoughtfulness and sadness succeeded. At length, laying aside the instrument, he sat absorbed in reflection. My heart beat quick. This was the hour and moment of trial, which would decide my hopes or realize my fears. The servants were gone to a neighboring fair. All was silent in and around the cottage. It was an excellent opportunity, yet when I proceeded to execute my plan, my limbs failed me, and I sank to the ground. Again I rose, and, exerting all the firmness of which I was master, removed the planks which I had placed before my hovel to conceal my retreat. The fresh air revived me, and, with renewed determination, I approached the door of their cottage. I knocked. "Who is there?" said the old man. "Come in." I entered. I could probably do his voice for this, but I can't remember what voice I did. "Pardon the intrusion," said I. "I am a traveler in want of a little rest. You would greatly oblige me if you would allow me to remain a few minutes before the fire." "Enter," said De Lacy, "and I will try in what manner I can to relieve your wants, but unfortunately my children are not home, and as I am blind, I'm afraid I shall find it difficult to procure food for you." "Do not trouble yourself, my kind host. I have food. It is warmth and rest only that I need." I sat down, and a silence ensued. I knew that every minute was precious to me, yet I remained irresolute in what manner to commence the interview, when the old man addressed me. "By your language, stranger, I suppose you are my countryman? Are you French?" "No, but I was educated by a French family, and understand that language only. I am now going to claim the protection of some friends whom I sincerely love, in whose favor I have some hopes." "Are they Germans?" "No, they are French. Let us change the subject. I am an unfortunate and deserted creature. I look around, and I have no relation or friend upon earth. These amiable people to whom I go have never seen me, and know little of me. I am full of fears, for if I fail there, I am an outcast in the world forever. Do not despair. To be friendless is indeed to be unfortunate, but the hearts of men, when unprejudiced by any obvious self-interest, are full of brotherly love and charity. Rely therefore on your hopes, and if these friends are good and amiable, do not despair. They are kind. They are the most excellent creatures in the world. But unfortunately, they are prejudiced against me. I have good dispositions. My life has been hitherto harmless, and in some degree beneficial. But a fatal prejudice clouds their eyes, and when they ought to be seeing a feeling and kind friend, they behold only a detestable monster. That is indeed unfortunate. But if you are really blameless, cannot you undeceive them? I am about to undertake that task, and it is on that account that I feel so many overwhelming terrors. I tenderly love these friends I have, unknown to them, been for many months in the habits of daily kindness towards them, but they believe that I wish to injure them, and it is that prejudice which I wish to overcome. Where do these friends reside? Near this spot? The old man paused and then continued. If you will unreservedly confide to me the particulars of your tale, I perhaps may be of use in undeceiving them. I am blind and cannot judge of your countenance, but there is something in your words which persuades me that you are sincere. I am poor and an exile, but it will afford me true pleasure to be in any way serviceable to a human creature. Excellent, man. I thank you and accept your generous offer. You raise me from the dust by this kindness, and I trust that, by your aid, I shall not be driven from the society and sympathy of your fellow creatures. Heaven forbid, even if you were really criminal, for that can only drive you to desperation, and not instigate you to virtue. I also am unfortunate. I and my family have been condemned. Although innocent, judge, therefore, if I do not feel for your misfortunes. How can I thank you, my best and only benefactor? From your lips first have I heard the voice of kindness directed towards me. I shall be forever grateful, and your present humanity assures me of success with those friends who I am on point of meeting. May I know the names and residence of those friends? I paused. This, I thought, was the moment of decision, which was to rob me of or bestow happiness on me forever. I struggled vainly for firmness sufficient to answer him, but the effort destroyed all my remaining strength. I sank on the chair and sobbed out loud. At that moment, I heard the steps of my younger protectors. I had not a moment to lose, but seizing the hand of the old man, I cried, "Now is the time! Save and protect me! You and your family are the friends whom I seek. Do not you desert me in the hour of trial." "Great God!" exclaimed the old man. "Who are you?" At that instant, the cottage door was opened, and Felix, Safie, and Agatha entered. Who can describe their horror and consternation on beholding me? Agatha fainted, and Safie, unable to attend to her friend, rushed out of the cottage. Felix darted forward and with supernatural force tore me from his father, to whose knees I clung. In a transport of fury, he dashed me to the ground and struck me violently with a stick. I could have torn him limb from limb as the lion rends the antelope, but my heart sunk within me as with bitter sickness, and I refrained. I saw him on the point of repeating this blow when, overcome by pain and anguish, I quitted the cottage and in the general tumult escaped unperceived to my hovel. Damn, they beat him up. Just like that. Okay. Chapter 8. Cursed, cursed creator, why did I live? Why in that instant did I not extinguish the spark of existence which you had so wantonly bestowed? I know not. Despair had not yet taken possession of me. My feelings were those of rage and revenge. I could have pleasure. I could with pleasure have destroyed the cottage and its inhabitants, and have glutted myself with their shrieks and misery. When night came, I quitted my retreat and wandered in the wood, and now, no longer restrained by the fear of discovery, I gave vent to my anguish in fearful howlings. I was like a wild beast that had broken the toils, destroying the objects that obstructed me, and ranging through the wood with a stag-like swiftness. Oh, what a miserable night I passed! The cold stars shone in mockery, and the bare trees waved their branches above me. Now and then the sweet voice of a bird burst forth amidst the universal stillness. All save I were at rest or in enjoyment. I, like the arch-fiend, bore a hell within me, and finding myself unsympathized with, wished to tear up the trees, spread havoc and destruction around me, and then to have sat down and enjoyed the ruin. But this was a luxury of sensation that could not endure. I became fatigued with excessive bodily exertion, and sank on the damp grass in the sick impotence of despair. There was none among the myriads of men that existed who would pity or assist me, and should I feel kindness towards my enemies? No, from that moment I declared everlasting war against the species, and more than all, against him who had formed me and sent me forth to this insupportable misery. Uh-huh. Footnote, in this turning point, the creature no longer figures himself as an atom, the first being of a new creation of humans or humanoids. Rather, he opts to be like Milton's Satan, of whom he has read. The epic poem Paradise Lost recounts the fall of the angel Satan, who does battle with God, is exiled from heaven, and plots his revenge against his creator with the temptation of Adam and Eve to eat the forbidden tree of knowledge. Sentenced by God to hell, Milton Satan is determined to make a heaven of his hell, and to reveal in his punishment, which he sees as unjust. In Mary's story, the creature, having exhausted the limits of reason and compassion, when he receives no kindness from humans, cuts himself off from the human race and becomes the antagonist of humankind. Uh-oh. The sun rose, I heard the voices of men, and knew that it was impossible to return to my retreat during that day. Accordingly, I hid myself in some thick underwood, determining to devote the ensuing hours to reflection of my situation. The pleasant sunshine and the pure air of day restored me to some degree of tranquillity, and when I considered what had passed at the cottage, I could not help believing that I had been too hasty in my conclusions. I had certainly acted imprudently. It was apparent that my conversation had interested the father in my behalf, and I was a fool in having exposed my person to the horror of his children. I ought to have familiarized the old De Lacy to me, and by degrees have discovered myself to the rest of his family, when they should have been prepared for my approach. But I do not believe my errors to be irretrievable, and after much consideration, I resolved to return to the cottage, seek the old man, and by my representations win him to my party. These thoughts calmed me, and in the afternoon I sank into a profound sleep, but the fever of my blood did not allow me to be visited by peaceful dreams. The horrible scene of the preceding day was forever acting before my eyes. The females were flying, and the enraged Felix tearing me from his father's feet. I awoke exhausted, and, finding that it was already night, I crept forth from my hiding place and went in search of food. When my hunger was appeased, I directed my steps towards the well-known path that conducted to the cottage. All there was at peace. I crept into my hovel and remained in silent expectation of the accustomed hour when the family arose. That hour passed, the sun mounted high in the heavens, but the cottagers did not appear. I trembled violently, apprehending some dreadful misfortune. The inside of the cottage was dark, and I heard no motion. I cannot describe the agony of this suspense. Presently, 2 countrymen passed by, but, pausing near the cottage, they entered into conversation, using violent gesticulations, but I did not understand what they said, as they spoke the language of the country, which differed from that of my protectors. Soon after, however, Felix approached with another man. I was surprised, as I knew that he had not quitted the cottage that morning, and waited anxiously to discover, from his discourse, the meaning of these unnatural appearances. "Do you consider," said his companion to him, "that you will be obliged to pay 3 months' rent, and to lose the produce of your garden? I do not wish to take any unfair advantage, and I beg, therefore, that you will take some days to consider of your determination." "It is utterly useless," replied Felix. "We can never again inhabit your cottage. The life of my father is in the greatest danger, owing to the dreadful circumstances that I have related. My wife and my sister will never recover from their horror, and I entreat you not to reason with me any more. Take possession of your tenement, and let me fly from this place." Felix trembled violently as he said this. He and his companion entered the cottage, which they remained for a few minutes and then departed. I never saw any of the family of de Lacy more. I continued for the remainder of the day in my hovel in a state of utter and stupid despair. My protectors had departed and had broken the only link that had me to the world. For the first time, the feelings of revenge and hatred filled my bosom, and I did not strive to control them, but, allowing myself to be borne away by the stream, I bent my mind towards injury and death, and I thought of my friends, of the mild voice of de Lacy, and the gentle eyes of Agatha, and the exquisite beauty of the Arabian. These thoughts vanished, and a gush of tears somewhat soothed me. But again, when I reflected that they had spurned and deserted me, anger returned. A rage of anger, and unable to injure anything human, I turned my fury towards inanimate objects. As night advanced, I placed a variety of combustibles around the cottage, and after having destroyed every vestige of cultivation in the garden, I waited with forced impatience until the moon had sunk to commence my operations. Is he gonna blow up the cottage? Well, that's surely something. As the night advanced, a fierce wind arose from the woods and quickly dispersed the clouds that had loitered in the heavens. The blast tore along like a mighty avalanche and produced a kind of insanity in my spirits that burst all bounds of reason and reflection. Okay, where did he get this? Where did he get bombs? What did he make? How does the creature know how to make a bomb? That burst all bounds of reason and reflection. I lighted the dry branch of a tree and danced with fury around the devoted cottage, my eyes still fixed on the western horizon, the edge of which the moon nearly touched. Part of its orb was at length hid, and I waved my brand. It sunk, and with a loud scream I fired the straw and heath and bushes which I had collected. Okay, he's just lighting on fire, not a bomb, I think. The wind fanned the fire, and the cottage was quickly enveloped by the flames which clung to it, and licked it with their forked and destroying tongues. As soon as I was convinced that no assistance could save any part of the habitation, I quitted the scene and sought for refuge in the woods. And now, with the world before me, whither should I bend my steps? I resolved to fly far from the scene of my misfortunes. But to me, hated and despised, every country must be equally horrible. At length, the thought of you crossed my mind. I learned from your papers that you were my father, my creator, and to whom could I apply with more fitness than to him who had given me life? Among the lessons that Felix had bestowed upon Safie, geography had not been omitted. I had learned from these relative situations of the different countries of the earth. You had mentioned Geneva as the name of your native town, and towards this place I resolved to proceed. But how was I to direct myself? I knew that I must travel in a southwesternly direction to reach my destination, but the sun was my only guide. I did not know the names of the towns that I was to pass through, nor could I ask information from a single human being. But I did not despair. From you only could I hope for secure. Although towards you I felt no sentiment but that of hatred. Unfeeling, heartless creator, you had endowed me with perceptions and passions, and then cast me abroad an object for the scorn and horror of mankind. But on you only had I any claim for pity and redress, and from you I determined to seek that justice which I vainly attempted to gain from any other being that who bore the human form. My travels were long and the sufferings I endured intense. It was late in autumn when I quitted the district where I had so long resided. I traveled only at night, fearful of encountering the visage of a human being. Nature decayed around me, and the sun became heatless. Rain and snow poured around me. Mighty rivers were frozen. The surface of the earth was hard and chill and bare, and I found no shelter. O earth, how often did I imprecate curse upon the cause of my being? The mildness of my nature had fled, and all within me was turned to gall and bitterness. The nearer I approached to your habitation, the more deeply did I feel the spirit of revenge enkindle in my heart. Snow fell and the waters were hardened, but I rested not. A few incidents now and then directed me, and I possessed a map of the country. What does he mean by that? A few incidents happened and he has a map? Did he kill someone? Or at least steal their map? But I often wandered wide from my path. Ugh. The agony of my feelings allowed me no respite. No incident occurred from which my rage and misery could not extract its food. But a circumstance that happened when I arrived on the confines of Switzerland, when the sun had recovered its warmth and the earth again began to look green, confirmed in an especial manner the bitterness and horror of my feelings. So how does he know it's August? Does he keep track? I generally rested during the day and traveled only when I was secured by night from the view of man. One morning, however, finding that my path lay through a deep wood, I ventured to continue my journey after the sun had risen. The day, which was one of the first of spring, cheered even me by the loveliness of its sunshine and the balminess of the air. I felt emotions of gentleness and pleasure that had long appeared dead revive within me. Half surprised by the novelty of these sensations, I allowed myself to be borne away by them. And, forgetting my solitude and deformity, dared to be happy. Soft tears again bedewed my cheeks, and I even raised my humid eyes with thankfulness towards the blessed sun which bestowed such joy upon me. I continued to wind along the paths of the wood until I came to its boundary, which was skirted by a deep and rapid river, into which many of the trees bent their branches, now budding with the fresh spring. Here I paused, not exactly knowing what path to pursue, when I heard the sound of voices that induced me to conceal myself under the shade of a cypress. I was scarcely hid when a young girl came running towards the spot where I was concealed, laughing as if she ran from someone in sport. She continued her course along the precipitous sides of the river, when suddenly her foot slipped and she fell into the rapid stream. I rushed from my hiding place and with extreme labor from the force of the current, saved her and dragged her to shore. She was senseless, and I endeavored, by every means in my power, to restore animation, when I was suddenly interrupted by the approach of a rustic, who was probably the person from whom she had playfully fled. On seeing me, he darted towards me, and tearing the girl from my arms, hastened towards the deeper parts of the wood. I followed speedily, I hardly knew why, but when the man saw me draw near, he aimed a gun which he carried at my body and fired. I sunk to the ground, and my injurer, with increased swiftness, escaped into the wood. This was then the reward of my benevolence. I had saved a human being from destruction, and as a recompense, I now writhed under the miserable pain of a wound which shattered the flesh and bone. The feelings of kindness and gentleness which I had entertained but a few moments before gave place to hellish rage and gnashing of teeth, inflamed by pain. I vowed eternal hatred and vengeance to all mankind, but the agony of my wound overcame me. My pulses paused and I fainted. It's a little funny. For some weeks I led a miserable life in the woods, endeavoring to cure the wound which I had received. The ball had entered my shoulder, and I knew not whether it had remained there or passed through. At any rate, I had no means of extracting it. My sufferings were augmented also by the oppressive sense of the injustice and ingratitude of their infliction. My daily vows rose for revenge, a deep and deadly revenge, such as would alone compensate for the outrages and anguish I had endured. After some weeks, my wound healed, and I continued my journey. So there's a chance he's got a bullet in his shoulder? The labors I endured were no longer to be alleviated by the bright sun or gentle breezes of spring. All joy was but a mockery, which insulted my desolate state. It made me feel more painfully that I was not made for the enjoyment of pleasure. But my toils now drew near a close, and 2 months from this time I reached the environs of Geneva. It was evening when I arrived, and I retired to a hiding place among the fields that surrounded it, to meditate in what manner I should apply to you. I was oppressed by fatigue and hunger, and far too unhappy to enjoy the gentle breezes of evening, or the prospect of the sun setting behind these stupendous mountains of Jura. At this time a slight sleep relieved me from the pain of reflection, which was disturbed by the approach of a beautiful child who came running into the recesses I had chosen with all the sportiness of infancy. Suddenly, as I gazed on him, an idea seized me that this little creature was unprejudiced and had lived too short a time to have imbibed a horror of deformity. If therefore I could seize him and educate him as my companion and friend, I should not be so desolate in this peopled earth. He's still trying to make friends. He's still trying. He is full of hate and he is still trying. One sec. Urged by this impulse, I seized on the boy as he passed and drew him towards me. As soon as he beheld my form, he placed his hands before his eyes and uttered a shrill scream. I drew his hand forcibly from his face and said, "Child, what is the meaning of this? I do not intend to hurt you. Listen to me." He struggled violently. "Let me go," he cried. "Monster, ugly wretch! You wish to eat me and tear me to pieces. You are an ogre. Let me go, or I will tell my papa." "Boy, you will never see your father again. You must come with me." That's not helpful words, dude. "Hideous monster, let me go. My papa is a syndic." Syndic? Yeah, I guess. "He is Monsieur Frankenstein. He would punish you. You dare not keep me." "Frankenstein? You said the words. You believe you belong then to my enemy, to him towards whom I have sworn eternal revenge. You shall be my first victim." He's terrifying. The child struggled and loaded me with epithets which carried despair to my heart. Epithets? Quick search of that word. What? A term of abuse. Okay, so he's just being mean. He's just saying mean things. I grasped his throat to silence him, and in a moment he lay dead at my feet. I gazed on my victim, and my heart swelled with exultation and hellish triumph. Clapping my hands, I exclaimed, "I too can create desolation. My enemy is not impregnable. This death will carry despair to him, and 1,000 other miseries shall torment and destroy him." As I fixed my eyes on the child, I saw something glittering on his breast. I took it. It was a portrait of a most lovely woman. In spite of my malignity, it softened and attracted me. For a few moments I gazed with delight on her dark eyes, fringed by deep lashes, and her lovely lips, but presently my rage returned. I remembered that I was forever depraved of the delights that such beautiful creatures could bestow, and that she whose resemblance I contemplated would, in regarding me, have changed that air of divine benignity to one expressive of disgust and affright. Can you wonder that such thoughts transported me with rage? I only wonder that at that moment, instead of venting my sensations and exclamations in agony, I did not rush among mankind and perish in the attempt to destroy them. While I was overcome by these feelings, I left the spot where I had committed the murder, and was seeking a more secluded hiding place when I perceived a woman passing near me. She was young, not indeed so beautiful as her whose portrait I held, but of an agreeable aspect, and blooming in the loveliness of youth and health. Here, I thought, is one of those whose smiles are bestowed on all but me. She shall not escape. thanks to the lessons of Felix and the sanguinary laws of man. I have learned how to work mischief. I approached her unperceived and placed the portrait securely in one of the folds of her dress. How did he do that? This dude's like 7 feet tall. For some days I haunted the spot where these scenes had taken place, sometimes wishing to see you, sometimes resolved to quit the world and its miseries forever. At length I wandered towards these mountains, and have ranged through their immense recesses, consumed by a burning passion which you alone can gratify. You may not part until you have promised to comply with my requisition. I am alone and miserable. Man will not associate with me, but one as deformed and horrible as myself would not deny herself to me. My companion must be of the same species and have the same defects. This being you must create. Yo. He needs his Eve. That's what he's asking. Also, he knows he has committed murder. Like, he knows this is a bad thing. But I think what, like, I don't know. I think a lot of like serial killers, when they kind of describe like why they did kind of what they did, is they do ascribe a sort of like otherness to themselves. Like, they always describe themselves in like, oh, I just don't feel like I fit in or whatever. Or sometimes it's like kind of the same sentiments that the creature is saying, like, um, where is it? The thing of like she'd smile at everyone but me. Here I thought is one of those whose smiles are bestowed on all but me. I feel like that. I feel like that sentiment is true amongst some people who are murderers on purpose. Anyway, just really interesting wording, I think. Really cool. I don't know how else to explain my thoughts. It's really interesting and it feels really like truthful in a way of like, this is how humans would think. Like, this is how anyone would think if you were brought up and had the same circumstances, kind of thing. But even still, he is trying to get a friend, and then heard Frankenstein and went, oh, wait. Anyway, we were on chapter 9. This is the last one for tonight, I think, because then we're done volume 2, and I think that's just a good place to end it. And then volume 3 has how many chapters? Volume 3, for some reason, changes into Roman numerals. It's a long chapter, Jesus. I don't know, but I think it's about the same length. So I think volume 3 should take us another 2 streams. So hopefully Hopefully, I might be done before my birthday, or around my birthday, which is kind of funny. I might stream the day before my birthday. I don't really have plans yet for an actual, like, party, because I work, like, the whole week. Yeah, so maybe I'll do a birthday stream. I'm trying to plan, like, an actual thing, and it's just... it's a pain, because it's either, like, I work really early the next day, or I work the next 4 days. It is getting close. It might be a thing if I might celebrate it, like, a week or 2 after, because I can't get time off, but it's fine. Anyway. Chapter 9. We're almost there. I hope you guys are enjoying. I'm doing my best at reading. I'm trying to get some emotion in there a little bit. I don't know how much it's actually coming across, though. Yeah, I'm still enjoying reading it. It's very dramatic, so I'm trying to read it dramatically, basically, is what I'm saying. Okay, and we're back to Victor's perspective, so I might have to actually use the creature voice. Although I think all of this is a conversation between them. Okay. The being finished speaking and fixed his looks upon me in expectation of a reply, but I was bewildered, perplexed, and unable to arrange my ideas sufficiently to understand the full extent of his proposition. Oh, hello! Oh, how long was your message? What the hell? Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, Fazapan is completely nuking you, but hello. Welcome. Thank you for the raid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's time to go for 30 seconds. Maybe just put a shorter version of your message. But hi, thank you. What were you doing? How's it going? My name's Bones. We are reading Frankenstein. Thank you for the follow. Ooh, Pride and Prejudice. We're on the same wavelength, man. I'm reading this because it was... I didn't read it in school, but I did read Pride and Prejudice, which I actually really enjoy. And thank you, Zircon, for the shout-out. I'm also... okay, this is for I mean, for you as well, but mainly for also my community. I have this little, like, the Frosty Tools thing that says, like, the Howdy Partner, and it kind of just, like, briefly summarizes who rated us. Do we like that or not? I feel like I don't actually read it. But Archangel Librarian is an interesting... Hello from Paris. Hello. I am not in Paris. I'm from Canada. So hi. Thank you for the follow, though, Rhyme Ben. And yeah, that was Cassiel Aurelius. Not even the French part of Canada, nope. I took some French classes. Do I remember any of it? Not at all. But yeah, hi. I stream readings on Friday. Fridays usually. Right now we're reading Frankenstein. We're at the end of volume 2, so more than halfway through. Um, Other than that, I play a lot of Minecraft on Mondays, and then I've been going through some other games as well, like Red Dead and Hollow Knight and The Sims. So we do a variety here. Yeah, I took French classes. You have to start in Canada, at least where I'm from, grade 5? Grade 4 or 5, I want to say. And then I continued that until grade 10. And all my classes were just like all my teachers were just so bad that I never actually learned. It was just kind of a repeat of kindergarten level French all the way until grade 10. So that was great. Studied 1 year of British and American literature. Ooh. I mean, yeah. I think for classes like that, you might not remember specifics, but it is to help like your understanding of the language a bit better. And I would assume like the main parts of literature like Frankenstein and Pride and Prejudice is kind of like the like what you can take from it kind of thing. Like the theme, basically. That's mainly the point of a lot of stories is like what can you learn from this and what does it tell you about humans in general. At least that's what we've been getting at in this. Also, did my oh, my follower thing is out of whack. Did I set up an alert for my raid? Did that happen? Did that like shoot a bunch of shit onto everyone's screens? Damn, Zircon. I'm hoping it did, but I have no idea. It did make the noise, which I'm glad. I kind of want to up that noise. It's a little quiet for me. Okay, let's do this. Just do that. I don't in my spare time. Um, but some of them do look interesting. I do read some classic literature. I do like it. Uh, Shakespeare I really enjoy, quite honestly. I read the Iliad. Um, and I'll probably be reading some stuff like that on stream as well. Ovid's Metamorphosis also I'd like to read that I've read a little bit from. But in general, in other books from that, I like other series that I really like is kind of closer to like young adult nonfiction. I really like stories with like kind of superheroes, but not really. If that makes any sense. Like slightly dystopian stuff. Yeah. But yeah, have been enjoying Frankenstein. Zircon told me I would, and I have been. Nice, nice. I mean, there's not many things trying to think of something I don't really enjoy. I mean, there is definitely some genres that are not as good. I don't know. There's so many things. I'm looking at my bookshelf now. There's so many things I would like to read that's on my bookshelf that I just have not. Like, I've got a Western that I'd really like to get into because I think that'd be funny to read. There's so much out there. It's going to take me forever. Um, that's why I've actually been trying to get through it. And Frankenstein has taken us. When did I start this? January? Maybe December. It's taken us a couple months. Hopefully, should be done this next month. But yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate the raid again. No need to stick around, but I do appreciate it. Thank you all. And we're just gonna start again from from chapter 9 because we just started. The being finished speaking and fixed his looks upon me in expectation of a reply, but I was bewildered, perplexed, and unable to arrange my ideas sufficiently to understand the full extent of his proposition. He continued, "You must create a female for me, with whom I can live in the interchange of those sympathies necessary for my being. This you alone can do, and I demand it of you as a right which you must not refuse." The latter part of his tale had kindled anew in me the anger that had died away while he narrated his peaceful life among the cottagers. And as he said this, I could no longer suppress the rage that burned within me. "I do refuse it," I reply, "and no torture shall ever extort a consent from me. You may render me the most miserable of men, but you shall never make me base in my own eyes. Shall I create another like yourself, whose joint wickedness might desolate the world? Begone! I have answered you. You may torture me, but I will never consent." "You are in the wrong," replied the fiend, "and instead of threatening, I am content to reason with you. I am malicious because I am miserable. Am I not shunned and hated by all mankind? You, my creator, whom tear me to pieces and triumph, remember that, and tell me why I should pity man more than he pities me. You would not call it murder if you could precipitate me into one of those ice rifts and destroy my frame, the work of your own hands. Shall I respect man when he contemns me? Let him live with me in the interchange of kindness, and instead of injury, I would bestow every benefit upon him with tears of gratitude at his acceptance. But that cannot be. The human senses are insurmountable barriers to our union. Yet mine shall not be the submission of abject slavery. I will revenge my injuries if I cannot inspire love, and I will cause fear, and chiefly towards you, my arch-enemy, because my creator, do I swear inextinguishable hatred. Have a care, I will work at your destruction, nor finish until I desolate your heart, so that you curse the hour of your birth. A fiendish rage animated him as he said this. His face was wrinkled to contortions too horrible for human eyes to behold. But presently he calmed himself and then proceeded. "I intend to reason. This passion is detrimental to me, for you do not reflect that you are the cause of its success. If any felt emotions of benevolence towards me, I should return them all 100 and 100-fold. For that one creature's sake, I would have made peace with the whole kind, but I now indulge in dreams of bliss that could not be realized. What I ask of you is reasonable and moderate. I demand a creature of another sex, but as hideous as myself. The gratification is small, but it is all that I can receive. and it shall content me. It is true we shall be monsters, cut off from all the world, but on that account we shall be more attached to one another. Our lives will not be happy, but they will be harmless, and free from the misery I now feel. Oh, my Creator, make me happy. Let me feel gratitude towards you for one benefit. Let me see that I excite the sympathy of some existing thing. Do not deny me my request. I was moved. I shuddered when I thought of the possible consequences of my consent, but I felt that there was some justice in his argument. His tale, and the feelings he now expressed, proved him to be a creature of fine sensations, and I did not, as his maker, owe him all the portion of happiness that is in my power to bestow. He saw my change of feeling and continued, "If you consent, neither you nor any other human being shall ever see us again. I will go to the vast wilds of South America." How is he going to get there? Anyway, my food is not that of man. I do not destroy the lamb and the kid to glut my appetite. Acorns and berries afford me sufficient nourishment. My companion will be of the same nature as myself, and will be content with the same fare. We shall make our bed of dried leaves, the sun will shine on us as man, and you will ripen our food. The picture I present to you is peaceful and human, and you must feel that you could deny it only in the wantonness of power and cruelty. Pitiless as you have been towards me, I now see compassion in your eyes. Let me seize the favorable moment and persuade you to promise what I so ardently desire. You propose, replied I, to fly from the habitations of man, to dwell in those wilds where the beasts of the field will be your only companions. How can you, who long for the love and sympathy of man, persevere in this exile? You will return and again seek their kindness, and you will meet with their detestation. Your evil passions will be renewed, and you will not have a companion to aid you in the task of destruction. This may not be. Cease to argue the point, for I cannot consent. How inconsistent are your feelings! But a moment ago you were moved by my representations, and why do you again harden yourself to my complaints? I swear to you by the earth which I inhabit, and by you that made me, that with the companion you bestow, I will quit the neighborhood of man and dwell as it may chance in the most savage of places. My evil passions will have fled, for I shall meet with sympathy. My life will flow quietly away, and in my dying moments I shall not curse my Maker. His words had a strange effect upon me. I compassionated him, and sometimes felt a wish to console him, but when I looked upon him, when I saw the filthy mass that moved and talked, my heart sickened, and my feelings were altered to those of horror and hatred. I tried to stifle these sensations. I thought that I could not sympathize with him, and had no right to withhold from him the small portion of happiness which was yet in my power to bestow. Yeah, he's like, the monster is genuinely trying to have like a relationship with people, and Frankenstein is genuinely trying not to. He goes, "Yeah, I am a father and I should deny him, but like he's ugly and I made him this way. So fuck him." Okay, and then this whole cliff note or footnote is just about the word sympathy. I don't care. You swear, I said, to be harmless, but have you not already sown a degree of malice that should reasonably make me distrust you? May not even this be a feint that will increase your triumph by affording a wider scope for your revenge? How is this? I thought I had moved your compassion, and yet you still refuse to bestow on me the only benefit that can soften my heart and render me harmless. If I had no ties and no affections, hatred and vice must be my portion. The love of another will destroy the cause of my crimes, and I shall become a thing of whose existence everyone will be ignorant. My vices are the children of a forced solitude that I abhor, and my virtues will necessarily arise when I live in communion with an equal. I shall feel the affections of a sensitive being and become linked to the chain of existence and events from which I am now excluded. I paused some time to reflect on all he had related and the various arguments which he had employed. I thought of the promise of virtues which he had displayed on the opening of his existence, and the subsequent blight of all kindly feeling toward by the loathing and scorn which his protectors had manifested towards him. His power and threats were not omitted in my calculations. A creature who could exist in the ice caves of the glaciers and hide himself from pursuit among the ridges of inaccessible precipices was a being possessing faculties it would be vain to cope with. After a long pause of reflection, I concluded that the justice due both to him and my fellow creatures demanded of me that I should comply with his request. Turning to him, therefore, I said, I consent to your demand, on your solemn oath to quit Europe forever and every other place in the neighborhood of man, as soon as I shall deliver into your hands a female who will accompany you in your exile. And then this footnote just says, Victor has reason to distrust the creature. Okay, I think we get it. Of course he has reason to distrust the creature. But he's also an idiot himself, so like... I swear, he cried, by the sun and by the blue skies of heaven, that if you grant my prayer, while they exist, you shall never behold me again. Depart to your home and commence your labors. I shall watch their progress with unutterable anxiety, and fear not, but that when you are ready, I shall appear. Saying this, he suddenly quitted me, fearful perhaps of any change in my sentiments. I saw him descend the mountain with greater speed than the flight of an eagle, and quickly lost him among the undulations of the sea of ice. His tale had occupied the whole day, and the sun was upon the verge of the horizon when he departed. I knew that I ought to hasten my descent towards the valley, as I should soon be encompassed in darkness, but my heart was heavy and my steps slow. The labor of winding among the little paths of the mountains and fixing my feet firmly as I advanced perplexed me. Occupied as I was by the emotions which the occurrences of the day had produced. Night was far advanced when I came to the halfway resting place and seated myself beside the fountain. Okay, hold on. The stars shone at intervals as the cloud passed from over them. The dark pines rose before me, and every here and there a broken tree lay on the ground. It was a scene of wonderful solemnity and stirred strange thoughts within me. I wept bitterly, and clasping my hands in agony, I exclaimed, O stars and clouds and wind, ye are all about to mock me. If you really pity me, crush sensation and memory, let me become as nought. But if not, depart, depart, and leave me in darkness. These were wild and miserable thoughts, but I cannot describe to you how the eternal twinkling of the stars weighed upon me, and how I listened to every blast of wind as if it were a dull, ugly siroc on its way to consume me. Morning dawned before I arrived at the village of Chamoix. I took no rest, but returned immediately to Geneva. The PDF also, again, so I'm reading from a book as well as a PDF. The PDF says that he was with his family this whole time. My book says he was alone. So we're kind of switching between the two. PDF, my presence so haggard and strange hardly calmed the fears of my family, who had waited the whole night in anxious expectation of my return. The following day we returned to Geneva. The intention of my father in coming had been to divert my mind and to restore me to my lost tranquillity, but the medicine had been fatal, and unable to account for the excess of misery I appeared to suffer. He hastened to return home, hoping the quiet and monotony of a domestic life would by degrees alleviate my sufferings from whatsoever cause they might spring. For myself, I was passive in all their arrangements, and the gentle affection of my beloved Elizabeth was inadequate to draw me from the depth of my despair. The promise I had made to the daemon weighed upon my mind like Dante's iron cowl on the heads of the hellish hypocrites. All pleasures of earth and sky passed before me like a dream, and that thought only had to me the reality of life. Can you wonder that sometimes a kind of insanity possessed me, or that I saw continually about me a multitude of filthy animals, inflicted on me incessant torture that often extorted screams and bitter groans? By degrees, however, these feelings became calmed. I entered again into the everyday scene of life, if not with interest, at least with some degree of tranquillity. My book goes. I took no rest, but returned immediately to Geneva. Even in my own heart, I could give no expression to my sensations. They weighed on me with a mountain's weight, and their excess destroyed my agony beneath them. Thus I returned home, and entering my house, presented myself to the family. My haggard and wild appearance awoke intense alarm, but I answered no questions. Scarcely did I speak. I felt as if I were placed under a ban, as if I had no right to claim their sympathies, as if never more might I enjoy companionship with them. Yet even thus I loved them to adoration and to save them. I resolved to dedicate myself to my most abhorrent task. The prospect of such an occupation made every other circumstance of existence pass before me like a dream, and that thought only had to me the reality of life. End of Volume 2. And that is where we're going to end today. As I said, I think 2 more streams and we should be done Frankenstein. And then I might host like a little movie night in my Discord where we can watch at least one Frankenstein movie, because I don't think I've ever seen a Frankenstein movie. Yeah. So he's gonna make him a wife, I guess, which is where the idea of Frankenstein's bride come from. That does sound. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. How long is it? The silent film. Let me take a look at this. Hold on. Like this? After the film's release, it became the last Italian production for Alberti Film. Early example of a horror film. The film was submitted to the Italian censors. Cuts to the film were suggested as quickly as December. The film was not released until September. There's evidence that the film was distributed both domestically and internationally, but the full context is unclear. Variations of the film's title appear in different publicity materials. One surviving poster shows that at least one Italian cinema had planned on exhibiting the film as late as 1926. I was reading, okay, I know this is the AI thing, but it says it is now considered lost. What is this? I mean, we could watch this, I guess. It's only 12 minutes. We can watch like that. 1930 Frankenstein. Okay, yeah, that's where this image comes from. I want to watch whatever this is from. We'll decide that later. I'll look into that a bit more. But thank you all for joining. I hope you had a good time listening to Frankenstein. That will be it for today. And we're going to find someone to raid. Of course, Zircon, you finally caught one. I am poking fun. Okay, we're gonna raid my. We've raided this dude before. He does great stuff. He does a lot of reading as well, so only fitting. I don't think he's reading right now, but he is singing. So please join the raid and go say hi to him. And yeah, I would also appreciate a follow here if you're still watching, and also on my YouTube. I will hopefully be editing soon. Yeah, hopefully my video is out soon-ish. I have no idea. I'm trying to at least go for one a month. Hopefully more, but yeah, I will see you guys later. Bye.